Why Iran and the US absolutely hate each other. Most countries that hate each other have a clean story. It is either a border dispute, a war that ended badly, or a century of rivalry that everybody understands in a sentence. The hatred makes sense from the outside, and it makes sense from the inside. The United States and Iran don't have that kind of story. What they have instead is something far more complicated. A relationship that started as a genuine alliance, collapsed into one of the most bitter geopolitical feuds of the modern era, and has spent the last 4 decades lurching from crisis to near war and back again. A relationship where both sides have genuinely wronged the other, where the grievances are real on both ends, and where every time the two countries have come close to stepping back from the edge, something, a drone strike, a downed aircraft, a stormed embassy, has pulled them right back to it. To understand why Iran and America hate each other the way they do, you can't start in 1979. You can't start with the hostage crisis or the Islamic Revolution or the Ayatollahs. You have to go back much further, to oil, to a coup most Americans have never heard of, and to a decision made in 1953 that set everything else in motion. At the beginning of the 20th century, British explorers discovered something extraordinary beneath the Iranian desert. Oil. Enormous quantities of it. Enough to make Iran one of the most strategically valuable territories on the planet. The British moved quickly. They negotiated a deal with the Iranian government to jointly develop and profit from the discovery, forming the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which would eventually become one of the largest corporations in the entire British Empire. The terms of that deal were not exactly balanced. Iran, the country where all the oil actually was, received 16% of the profits. Britain took the other 84%. Iranian oil workers lived in conditions that bordered on squalor, while the company generated fortunes that flowed almost entirely back to London. And when Iranian officials asked to audit the books to simply verify what the company was actually earning, the British refused. By the early 1950s, the pressure inside Iran to do something about this arrangement had become overwhelming. In 1951, Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company with unanimous parliamentary approval. The oil belonged to Iran, he argued. Iran should benefit from it. Britain's response was immediate. It embargoed Iranian oil and began lobbying Washington to act. And in 1953, the CIA and Britain's MI6 organized a coup that overthrew Mossadegh's democratically elected government, placed him under house arrest for the rest of his life, and reinstalled the Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi as an authoritarian ruler whose loyalty to Western interests was now essentially guaranteed by the fact that Western intelligence services had put him there. Iran had tried democracy. The West had taken it away because democracy had produced the wrong answer. That fact never left Iranian political memory. It is still there today. For the next 2.5 decades, the Shah governed Iran as Washington's most important Middle Eastern ally. He pursued a staunchly pro-American foreign policy. He maintained friendly relations with Israel at a time when almost no other Muslim-majority country would. He modernized Iran's economy, secularized its institutions, and expanded rights for women, policies that drew admiration in the West and deep resentment at home. His secret police, Savak, monitored, arrested, and tortured political opponents in numbers that ran into the thousands. Dissidents were jailed. Critics were exiled. The apparatus of repression was comprehensive and brutal. The United States knew about all of it. It continued supporting the Shah anyway because he was strategically useful and reliably anti-Soviet. By the late 1970s, the pressure that had been building inside Iran for decades had reached a breaking point. Leftists, working-class Iranians, and religious conservatives had almost nothing in common, except their hatred of the Shah and the American backing that kept him in power. In 1979, that coalition brought the whole structure down. More than 5 million people took to the streets. The army began to fracture. The Shah fled the country. What replaced him was something nobody in Washington had fully anticipated. Not a moderate reformist government, not a pro-Western liberal democracy. The Islamic Republic of Iran, a Shiite theocracy led by Ayatollah Khomeini, implacably opposed to the United States and immediately set on proving it. The break came fast and it came completely. The Shah, sick with cancer, was admitted to the United States for medical treatment. Iran demanded his extradition to stand trial for crimes committed during his reign. Washington refused. And inside Iran, the paranoia that had been building since 1953 reached its peak. America had installed the Shah twice. America had the Shah on its soil. What was to stop the CIA from engineering a third coup and putting him back? In November 1979, thousands of Iranian students and revolutionaries stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and took 52 American diplomats and civilians hostage. They held them for 444 days. Jimmy Carter tried diplomacy. It went nowhere. He authorized a military rescue operation in April 1980, Operation Eagle Claw, that ended in catastrophe when a helicopter collided with a transport plane in the Iranian desert before a single shot was fired. 8 American soldiers died. The hostages stayed in Iran. Carter cut diplomatic relations entirely. They have never been restored. Then, just months later, something happened that made everything more complicated. Saddam Hussein's Iraq, sensing opportunity in Iran's post-revolutionary chaos, launched a full-scale invasion. Rather than support Iran against the aggressor, the United States began quietly backing Saddam, supplying intelligence, providing weapons, helping Iraq deploy chemical weapons that killed hundreds of thousands of Iranians on the front lines of a war that lasted 8 years and left somewhere between 400 and 500,000 Iranians dead. From Tehran's perspective, America had now overthrown their democracy, propped up their dictator, armed the man who gassed their soldiers, and held diplomatic relations hostage to its own strategic preferences. The grievance wasn't manufactured, it was documented and real. The war ended in 1988. The hostility did not. In April of that year, a U.S. Navy frigate struck an Iranian mine in the Persian Gulf and was nearly sunk. America retaliated with Operation Praying Mantis, the largest U.S. naval combat operation since World War II. 2 Iranian oil platforms were destroyed. 6 Iranian warships were sunk. Half of Iran's entire naval fleet was wiped out in a single day. 3 months later, a U.S. cruiser in Iranian territorial waters misidentified a commercial airliner, Iran Air Flight 655, en route from Tehran to Dubai with 290 people aboard, as a fighter jet and shot it down. Every single person on board was killed. The United States never formally apologized. It paid compensation years later while maintaining the crew had acted appropriately given the information available. To Iran, that plane was not an accident. It was America killing civilians and refusing to say sorry. The 1990s brought more sanctions. The 2000s brought George W. Bush's axis of evil speech, lumping Iran alongside Saddam's Iraq and North Korea as existential threats to American security. Then came the invasion of Iraq in 2003, which toppled a Sunni government and handed Iran's Shia allies significant political influence over its neighbor. Whatever Bush intended, the net result was that Iran emerged from the Iraq War more regionally powerful than it had entered it. And then there was the nuclear question, the issue that has defined every US-Iran interaction since. Iran's nuclear program accelerated after 2003, and the message from the Iraq invasion was impossible to misread. Saddam had no weapons of mass destruction, and he was removed from power in a month. North Korea tested a nuclear device in 2006, and nobody invaded North Korea. The strategic logic of nuclear deterrence had never been more clearly demonstrated. Iran denied it was building a bomb. The United States and Israel said it was. Years of negotiations, sanctions, and covert operations, including the assassination of Iranian nuclear scientists, widely attributed to Israel with American awareness, followed. In 2015, the Obama administration reached a breakthrough. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal, froze Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sweeping sanctions relief. It was the closest the two countries had come to genuine diplomatic progress since 1979. It lasted 3 years. In 2018, Donald Trump withdrew from the deal entirely, reimposed sanctions, and began what his administration called a maximum pressure campaign designed to force Iran back to the negotiating table on harsher terms. Iran's response was to gradually restart its nuclear program step by step, while its proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq and Syria, and Houthis in Yemen, increased pressure on American interests across the region. Then came January 2020, and the closest the two countries had ever come to all-out war. Qasem Soleimani was the commander of Iran's Quds Force, the architect of Iran's entire regional proxy network, the man who had spent 2 decades building the web of militias and influence that stretched from Lebanon to Iraq to Yemen. He was arguably the second most powerful figure in the Iranian government. And on January 3, 2020, as he stepped off a plane at Baghdad International Airport, an American drone killed him. The strike had been personally authorized by Donald Trump. Iran's response came 5 days later. Ballistic missiles rained down on 2 American military bases in Iraq. The entire world watched and waited. This was the moment. If American soldiers died, war was almost certainly coming. Nobody died. Whether by design or extraordinary luck, the strikes caused infrastructure damage but 0 fatalities. Both sides found a way to step back. Iran had struck American military targets, which it needed to do to maintain credibility at home. America had not suffered casualties, which gave it the option not to retaliate. Both governments took that exit. But the exit came with a cost nobody had planned for. Iran's air defenses, on high alert for an American counterstrike, detected what they believed was an incoming cruise missile and opened fire. It was Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752. 176 people were killed. 82 of them were Iranian citizens. The Iranian government initially denied responsibility, then tried to suppress the evidence, and then admitted the truth after satellite data made denial impossible. The protests that followed were some of the largest Iran had seen in years, directed not at America, but at the regime itself. Here's the part that makes the US-Iran conflict unlike most others. Both sides have a legitimate case. America's case. Iran has sponsored terrorism across the Middle East for 4 decades, held American diplomats hostage for over a year, killed American soldiers through proxy forces, and has spent years working toward nuclear capability while threatening to wipe Israel off the map. Iran's case. America overthrew their democracy in 1953, installed and supported a brutal dictator for 26 years, armed the man who chemically attacked their soldiers, shot down their civilian airliner and didn't apologize, and has spent decades squeezing their economy through sanctions while maintaining a military presence throughout their neighborhood. Neither case is fabricated. Both are grounded in things that actually happened, which is precisely what makes this particular hatred so durable and so dangerous. It is not a misunderstanding that better communication could resolve. It is a decades-long accumulation of genuine grievances, genuine betrayals, and genuine harm inflicted in both directions by governments that each believe, with some justification, that the other has been trying to destroy them. That is a very difficult thing to negotiate your way out of, and so far, nobody has managed it. The question that has been sitting over the Persian Gulf for 45 years is whether anyone ever will. And if you didn't know about 1953, there's a lot more Cold War history that got buried. Subscribe. We cover the events that explain why the world looks the way it does today.